So let's take a moment and cultivate our motivation. It's very helpful to think of the fragility of our life and how we feel quite permanent and truly existent, really here. But in a moment, anything can happen, and all of that changes. Because our body is not actually very strong, and even small things can damage it in big ways. And when the body is no longer able to support the consciousness, then this life ends. The aggregates of a human being are lost and thrown, propelled by karma. We clutch at new aggregates, a new body, and a new rebirth occurs. So this has been going on since beginningless time without any let up in the process, taking one rebirth after the other in what they say is no fixed order, meaning that we can go from one realm to the next, up and down in a very chaotic manner, all determined by karma. So it's not the case that we're necessarily progressing and getting better and better rebirths. And so seeing how this whole situation is the result of the ignorant mind, which produces the afflictions, which create the karma, which bring about the rebirth. Seeing this, then we come to want to eliminate this ignorance that is at the root of it all. The difficulty, however, is that we don't even recognize what the ignorance is. And we think the ignorance is reality. We think what the ignorance views is reality. So under the influence of ignorance, we're trying to eliminate ignorance. So clearly that's not going to be an easy task. Nevertheless, we've met the Dharma. We have all the good conditions to do that. So let's call forth our energy and our strong aspiration for what is beneficial for self and others, and engage in practice, really transforming our minds and progressing on the path to full awakening. So cultivate that motivation for what we're about to do this evening. So it's really true, isn't it? We feel very kind of concrete and permanent, and I'm here and always have been and always will be, and no doubt about it. And yet, with the smallest thing, our body completely loses its ability to support the mind. And when the body and the mind separate, then that's death and what we call me, whatever your name is, this life, completely stops. You know, so when this body and this mind separate, children no longer exist, becomes, you know, completely gone. So people may say, oh, I wonder what happened to children, where she's reborn. But that's actually giving the name of the cause to the result, because children no longer exist. So there's no place where she's going to be reborn, because children was only what was labeled on this life's aggregates. And once this life's aggregates are gone, that label no longer applies. So it's interesting to think that like that, everything we are ceases. Isn't it? That feels strange. Like just like that, whoever we are just stops. That's it. The world goes on, everybody keeps doing what they're doing, but what we call our name, this life's name, you know, who we thought we are, ceases. Yeah. And then another set of aggregates come together, and a label is given to that set of aggregates, and then there's another life. But it's not like there's something that's me, this life, that kind of rises up outside the body and looks around for another rebirth and plunk goes into another body. Not like that. There's no such thing. You know, if we think that there's some kind of, you know, everlasting entity that's really me, that's something that's real that goes from one life to the next, forget it. You know, you can't find anything like that. Even the mind stream, it's, you know, one moment of mind ceases and a new moment arises. It's a totally new moment of mind that goes into the next life. It's not me. It's just another moment of mind. Yeah. So this very conditioned phenomena that we call me is really quite fragile, you know, totally dependent on causes and conditions. And when those causes and conditions change, then, you know, this life's me ceases. Now, and with it, this precious human life and all the opportunity we have to practice. And we don't know when that opportunity is going to come again, you know, because we're just, you know, the karma's ripening and we're so propelled by karma that, you know, whatever our karmic vision is at one particular time, we believe it and we run after it, and so we don't really know when we're going to have this opportunity. And even when we have this opportunity, it's so amazing how totally blind we are sometimes. You know, even as Dharma students, we think, oh, I've learned what virtue is and what non-virtue is, and I can tell when my mind has attachment in it. I can tell when my mind has anger in it. Sometimes I get emails from people that are like explaining to me about what they're going to do, and it's like, it's so clear their mind is under the influence of afflictions, and they can't see it at all. Not at all, one single iota. They think that completely what they're doing, you know, is good and virtuous and the path to happiness, and there's no affliction involved. And yet it's so clear from an outside perspective that they're in la-la land, you know. And then the frightening thing is that just like them, I too think that I know when my mind is under the control of afflictions, you know. And if they're blind to their afflictions, then I'm probably equally as blind to mine. You know, and when I think that I'm doing something virtuous, probably other people are looking and scratching their heads and going, what in the world does she think she's doing? You know? And the answer is, well, I think I'm doing virtue, but I'm not. Yeah. And everybody else can see it, but me. And if they try and point it out to me, I get angry. How dare you say that what I'm doing isn't virtuous? There's no affliction in my mind. Yeah. It's really hilarious, you know. When you see, you know, because we've all had friends that we try and point out to them when there's affliction in their mind, and they get so mad at us, don't they? Furious. You don't understand me. You don't trust me. You think that I'm one of those uncontrolled people. I'm not. I know what's good and what's bad. I know what's going on in my mind. This is not attachment. Huh? Famous last words, exactly. Yeah, this is not attachment. Yeah, well, we can't see it at all. So, you know, there's no reason to judge other people because we're just as blind. You know, when somebody tries to steer our mind in a different direction, and we put up a lot of resistance. Yeah. So this is samsara. So this is why we have to do something about it. And, you know, we do something about it, not because the Buddha said we should, or because some teacher said we should, or because our friends think we should, you know. But we do something because we understand what our situation is, and we want to change it. Yeah? But until we really grapple with what our situation is, you know, let's have samsara and nirvana at the same time. It sounds really good, doesn't it? I can have the object of my attachment, which, by the way, is pure dharma. Yeah. Whatever it is we're attached to is, you know, pure dharma. So I can have my object of attachment and enlightenment at the same time. Because my object of attachment, being pure dharma, is leading me on the path to realizations. Yeah? So we attach to, you know, what we think is leading us to realizations, and in fact that attachment is a setup for creating a ton of negative karma that is going to ripen in an unfortunate rebirth. But we're so convinced what we're doing is really good. Right? Okay. So let's talk about what the Bodhisattvas do as a way of seeing what our own potential is and what other beings right now are doing and can do. And so we too can transform our minds and become like them. So instead of being stuck in our own little drama, you know, we can see a larger reality, a larger possibility. Okay? So last time, which was however many eons ago that we had this class, we were talking about the 10 grounds of the Arya Bodhisattvas and what the distinguishing factors were between these 10 grounds, so that the 10 grounds basically are all ultimate bodhicitta, you know, the wisdom realizing emptiness. But they're differentiated based on what the conventional mind is capable of at that particular time. So there's 4 ways that these grounds are differentiated. Okay, so first of all, the number of good qualities gets higher and higher. So there's a certain set of good qualities, we'll get into this later, and the number of those good qualities increases as we go from one bodhisattva ground to the next. And the second is the feature of the majesty of power increases higher and higher, which means that each successive ground has a more and more ability to eliminate the obscurations. Okay? And then third is that there's a particular one of the 10 far-reaching practices that one reaches an unsurpassing level of at each ground. And then fourth is the kind of rebirth that Bodhisattva has the ability to take to benefit sentient beings. It becomes more and more vast, the opportunity to take certain rebirths which have a vaster ability to help sentient beings in a positive way. So those are the 4 kind of ways in which we differentiate one ground from the other. Remember that? But it's all talking about the grounds as being the wisdom realizing emptiness. So there's some beautiful quotes that I just want to go through again, because I really like them. So this one's from the Sutra on the 10 Grounds, the Dasabhumika Sutra, which says, just as the wise cannot express or see the trail of any bird across the sky, so none of the grounds of conqueror children can be expressed. Then how can one listen? So this is talking about how all the grounds, the mind is completely immersed in the meditative equipoise, realizing emptiness non-conceptually. Okay, so in that realization is completely like space. So just as you can't track the trail of a bird as it flies through space, how can we track any of the bodhisattvas when their minds are immersed in this non-conceptual union with reality? However, differences between these ultimate grounds are explained in terms of gradual progression of a mere portion of those grounds. So the mere portion of those grounds refer to those 4 qualities we just talked about. Okay, so by way of love, compassion, and aspirational prayers, and not in terms of objects of activity of the mind. So not in terms of, the emptiness that is realized by those different grounds, because they all realize the same emptiness in the same way, but in terms of the method side of the path. That's how the different grounds are differentiated. Okay? So nonetheless, until the 10th ground, there is the difference of newly seeing a formerly not seen factor of freedom from adventitious defilements in terms of the pure nature reality. Okay? So even though you can't differentiate the grounds in terms of what they're realizing in their experience, there is a difference in the sense that each ground sees a not formerly seen factor of freedom. So on each ground, as you go through the Bodhisattva grounds, the wisdom increases so that it's capable of eliminating a deeper level of obscuration. And so that true cessation, which is the absence of whatever level of obscuration is being removed, can now be seen by each successive ground directly. Okay, yeah. But when you're on the first ground, you can't see the true cessation of the second ground because your mind hasn't eliminated those level of obscurations yet. Okay, so you can't see that true cessation, and you can't see the emptiness of the mind that has eliminated the objects to be abandoned of the second mind, of the second ground, because that second ground hasn't arisen yet, and the mind hasn't eliminated those particular levels of obscuration. Okay, so this is what we're talking about. So for it is said that the exalted wisdoms of meditative equipoise of the 10 grounds have greater and lesser vision in terms of directly realizing the true cessations which were obtained by the uninterrupted paths of the lower grounds, and of not directly realizing the true cessations which will be attained by the uninterrupted paths of the higher grounds. So on each level, as we go up the grounds, we can see the true cessations of our own level and the levels below, but we can't see the true cessations of all the levels higher than us because we don't have them in our mind yet. Still, Tathagatas never move from the meditative stabilization which directly actualizes the completely perfect truth body, the factor of having abandoned the obstructions which are predispositions. Okay, so the completely perfect truth body, or the Dharmakaya, is the factor of having abandoned the obstructions which are the predispositions. So that omniscient mind of a Buddha has eliminated not only the afflictive obscurations, but also the obscurations that are predispositions. Those are the cognitive obscurations. So the difference between the two, the afflictive obscurations, are like the onions, and the predispositions are like the smell of the onions. Yeah, so much more subtle to eliminate the predispositions. Okay, so the Buddhas are able to reside, having the truth body, the omniscient mind, and that realizes conventional phenomena, and it also realizes its own true cessation and its own emptiness. Okay, so it's a very special mind because it can realize the two truths at the same time, and no mind of a sentient being can do that. Yeah, sentient beings are always either realizing one, either conventional truth or ultimate truth, none at the same time, but the Tathagata can realize both simultaneously. So this praise of the element of qualities, it's a text by Nagarjuna, says, just as the crescent moon is seen to increase day by day, similarly those abiding on the grounds also are seen to increase in stages. On the 15th day of the waxing moon, the moon becomes complete. Similarly, on the completion of the 10 grounds, the truth body is fully manifest. Okay, so just as the crescent mind is increasing day by day, in the same way, these bodhisattvas, are seeing the truth body more and more and more. They can't see the whole truth body because they haven't actualized it yet. But as they are attaining the higher levels by eliminating different levels of obscurations and gaining those true cessations, which are the emptiness of the mind that is purified of that level of obscuration, then they're becoming able to see greater and greater, or clearer and clearer, the Buddha's truth body, until, like on the 15th day, the moon is completely full. Then, when all the obscurations have been eliminated, then the truth body is completely seen and attained at the same time. So furthermore, although bodhisattvas abiding on the 10 grounds and tathagatas do not differ with regard to seeing reality directly, so both those Arya Bodhisattvas and the Tathagata realize emptiness non-conceptually and directly. There's no difference in that. But they differ in that the former, the Bodhisattvas, have not abandoned predispositions to ignorance and thus do not see reality for more than a brief time. Okay. So even though these Arya Bodhisattvas can stay in meditative equipoise for a long time, that is considered a brief time because they can't stay in it forever. They come out, and when they perceive conventional phenomena, their wisdom realizing emptiness is no longer direct and non-conceptual. Okay. Whereas since Tathagatas have abandoned the predispositions to ignorance exhaustively, they never arise from meditative equipoise, realizing emptiness directly. So that sounds really nice, doesn't it? To never arise from seeing the nature of reality directly. So then, you know, all your fears are eliminated at that point. So as long as you're seeing reality directly, there's nothing to be afraid of. So again, the Sutra on the 10 grounds says, like the sun in the sky when clouds are seen, even you superiors, the Aryas, who have the pure eye of intelligence, are of partial intelligence. You do not see all. You blessed ones, however, who have the truth body of limitless intelligence, see all the limitless objects of knowledge pervading the expanse of space. Okay, so just like the sun in the sky when there's clouds, you know, the sun can't shine everywhere. The sun has the ability to shine everywhere, but the clouds obscure it. So also those Aryas, they have the eyes of pure intelligence. They see emptiness directly, but they're still of partial intelligence because they can't stay in that meditative equipoise. And that meditative equipoise does not have the strength to eliminate all the obscurations yet. As they go up ground by ground, that wisdom gains more and more strength. Okay, but still, you know, their wisdom is not fully potent. Okay, so you do not see all, meaning they don't see the two truths simultaneously. You blessed ones, however, so this is referring to the Tathagatas, who have the truth body, the Dharmakaya, of limitless intelligence, see all the limitless objects of knowledge pervading the expanse of space. So that's why we say that the Buddha's omniscient mind perceives all conventional truths as well as all ultimate truths simultaneously. So especially all conventional truths in the past, present, and future. So I was just reading an article that one of my Dharma brothers wrote, and he says, how can the Buddha be omniscient and see the future? Because that would mean that the future were predetermined. Okay, so that initially sounds like a good argument, doesn't it? You know, because if the Buddha saw the future, then the future would be predetermined because the Buddha could see it. Sounds initially very good. But when you really think about it, at any, you know, and having a predetermined future is completely against the Buddhist idea of causality. You know, so we know that the future can't be predetermined because that would contradict, you know, one of Buddhist basic tenets. Yeah. So what does this mean? Okay. So this is my own thoughts in thinking about it. That at any particular moment, the Buddha can see the whole constellation of causes and conditions that exist at that moment that could potentially produce a certain result. That result does not exist at this time, and that result is not predetermined. Okay? But that constellation of causes that could give rise to that result exist at that time. And the Buddha sees that. But in the very next moment, that constellation, considering it's an impermanent phenomena, can change. And there can be another constellation with different dependently arising factors that are going to lead to a different result sometime in the future. Okay? So this is the way it makes sense to me. Yeah? You getting what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
It's like there are limitless futures that are only possibilities.
Right. Because we think, this is where all of our sci-fi background is detrimental. Because we're so used to, sci-fi movies where you go into the future and there's the object that's there truly existent before you. So we think if the Buddha sees the future, that object must already exist, like in some kind of other universe that's just waiting to happen and come into existence. And that's completely antithetical to the whole Buddhist idea of emptiness and causality. Yeah? So when the Buddha sees the future, I don't think he can be seeing especially some kind of concrete, truly existent object, because such things don't even exist. Yeah? But the Buddha sees all these different possibilities, and yet the possibilities, being conditioned phenomena, are changing from one moment to the next. Yeah? So what the future thing could be changes from one moment to the next. Yeah. It's like when you sit down to cook lunch, or stand up to cook lunch. Okay, you have an idea of what the lunch is going to look like. But as you start cooking, your idea of the lunch changes, doesn't it? Because you look in the refrigerator and you have different things than you thought you had. And then you change the size and shape of how you chop it, and you throw in something that you didn't think to throw in initially. And so, the lunch that you're cooking in the future, it doesn't exist before you've cooked it, But at each moment, there's a certain constellation of things that it looks like it's going to become. But then as your mind changes and as you find out what's around, what the actual result is going to become is changing all the time. Yeah? So I don't think we can say that because the Buddha sees the future, that means things are predetermined. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's just my way of thinking. It may be wrong. So I didn't ask any of my teachers what they thought about this. Well, actually, I think I did ask Geshe Sonam Rinchen, and it was kind of like, it's beyond our comprehension. What does the Buddha see? It's beyond our comprehension. So that's why they say it's inexpressible and all these other things, yeah. Because we can't even grok it, Okay. So there is a purpose for making the division into the 10 grounds, because for the sake of refuting wrong conceptions of those who do not assert a presentation of 10 grounds in the Mahayana, a division of the Mahayana into 10 grounds is made, having set up as an example the existence of the 8 lower grounds, which are renowned to the fundamental vehicle follower himself. That's one sentence. Okay, so there's a reason for making this division into 10 grounds, okay? So it seems like there's some people, you can think about who this might be, who hold the wrong conception that there are not the 10 grounds of the Mahayana. Now, who could have that wrong conception? Okay. Yeah, some of the, well, some of the solitary realizers and hearers may have the idea that there's bodhisattvas, they just don't want to become them. Okay, so we can't say it's really hearers and solitary realizers, but it's people maybe who are holding on to that path, and saying that the Mahayana, isn't true teachings or it's not a legitimate goal or something like that. Okay? So those people who say there's no presentation of the 10 grounds in the Mahayana. So to counteract their wrong view, there's the division of the Mahayana into 10 grounds. Okay? And that division into 10 grounds is made, having set up the example of the 8 lower grounds. Remember when we're talking about the hearers, and solitary realizers, the 8 lower grounds, because we have the approacher and abider in stream entry, once returner, non-returner, and arhat. So there we see a graded path. Yeah. So using that as an example for the hearer vehicle, solitary realizer vehicle, then there's a graded path for the bodhisattva vehicle. And that entails going through the 10 grounds. Okay? So just as those 8 abiders, approachers and abiders are arhats, or are aryas, then the 10 grounds are also, arya beings. So Nagarjuna's precious garland, advice for the king, says that this is the text Ratnavali. Okay, just as 8 fundamental vehicle grounds are explained in the hearer vehicle, similarly there are 10 bodhisattva grounds in the Mahayana. Says Nagarjuna. Okay, so that's the completion of that section. That section was called the divisions of the grounds of the Bodhisattva superiors. So that's what we just got done talking about. Now we're going to move into the divisions of paths of the Bodhisattva superiors. But before we do, are there any questions or comments? Mm-hmm.
That statement that was just read at the end of this section sort of to me seems like it's a case of just labeling something to create it. How is it not? It's just like, you say there's no 10 grounds, we'll just say there are 10 grounds, but that's what they exist.
Yeah, I know. You find these kind of statements where it seems like, yeah, well, we just say there's 10 grounds, so there, you say there aren't, we say there are, so we must be right. Yeah, so it sounds like that, but I think it's not really that. It's, clearly the 10 grounds exist by being merely labeled, yeah. But there is a basis for those labels. So it's not like there's no basis and we're just making up the 10 grounds. Yeah, there's a basis for those labels. So it may sound like you're just making up the name, but there is something to label it on, independence on. Yeah?
Can you give an example of what a predisposition obscuration is?
Which obscuration?
A predisposition? Like an afflictive
Oh, yeah.
growth form?
Okay, so the afflictive obscurations are the afflictions and their seeds, so like anger, resentment, attachment, craving, arrogance, these things. So those are the afflictive obscurations. Even when those are eliminated, also including ignorance, then there's a latency or a predisposition. So that's why make the analogy like the afflictive obscurations, like anger and jealousy and so on. They're like the onions in a pot. Even when you take the onions out, the smell is there. So even though the arhats have removed the afflictive obscurations and they no longer have anger and all these other, disturbing emotions, the mind isn't completely purified of all defilements yet because there's these predispositions or these latencies, that are like the smell of the onions.
I think that's because it's still like a self-centered kind of motivation, and that's why they get removed when you crack that.
It's not having to do so much with the self-centered motivation as it is that for, beginningless time we've had these afflictions. So even you remove them, there's still, some lingering energy.
So it's like the power of karma. That's why they say that it's so powerful, the karma.
Yeah, well, here it's not karma. We're talking about the energy of the afflictions. Okay? So there's no anger, but there's this subtle residue that is a predisposition of that anger, even though the anger's gone. Okay? Yeah. It's like when you go to the bathroom, yeah, you flush the toilet, but the bathroom still smells. Okay? So it's like that.
I guess I've always sort of had a very fixed idea that the appearance of true existence was sort of the only sign of that, but it sounds like
Sign of what?
the sign of the residual seeds or those things that are. So it sounds like maybe there's more than just the appearance of true existence that is an indicator that these things are still there.
Yeah, there's the appearance of true existence, but where does that come from? It comes from the predispositions of that grasping. Yeah, and they always point out true existence because that's the grasping at true existence because that's the root. But in the similar way, there's the similar residual predisposition from the other afflictions. So, for example, that's why they say that you can have an arhat who sometimes behaves in a very strange way, but it's not because they have any active affliction. It's just, some residual something. Yeah? Okay. But the chief culprit is the grasping at true existence. Okay. Other questions? This is a good stopping point. I can start the next section, but we'll get partway through, and then we have I should tell people we have a break while we're in the 3-month retreat, so we won't be having the live teachings on the paths and grounds during this time, but we really encourage you to review what we've done so far, and then also John's going to put up each week a video of a new teaching that hasn't been put up before from another series, right?
If we have enough that haven't been put up yet.
Yes, if we have enough that haven't been put up, which I think we probably do. Okay. Yeah.
I have a question, I don't know if I can formulate it right,
Mm-hmm.
because I can't find the right word. I thought there was expression, emptiness, that was qualified by, the idea was that the different levels or different grounds, the emptiness is the same, but the mind of the person realizing it is different. So there was some way that qualified that emptiness differently. I'm not sure if that was the exact word.
Yeah.
So it seems like this is the explanation. It's all a matter of what the very first thing you said in terms of what they've been able to abandon.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering if you could explain that again, because it's really a little hard to hold that the emptiness itself is different. I can understand the mind is different.
Okay.
But it's
Yeah. So it's
doesn't seem
right. It's hard to think that the emptiness of the first ground and the emptiness of the second ground are different. Yeah, okay. So looking at it from the perspective of an Arya's meditative equipoise on emptiness, there's no difference between the emptiness of the mind of the first ground and the emptiness of the mind of the second ground. They're both the emptiness of true existence. So from the viewpoint of the experience of the mind realizing emptiness, there's no difference. Okay? Also between the emptiness of the mind and the emptiness of the cup. There's no difference to the mind that directly realizes emptiness from that perspective. Okay? But from the perspective of the conventional mind that has realized emptiness, then there's going to be a difference, because let's say my conventional mind, yeah, that there's no realization of emptiness. So even though the emptiness of my mind exists, okay, it's the emptiness of a mind that's full of obscurations. Okay, so when talking about the emptiness from the perspective of the conventional object, it's the emptiness of, because there's a difference between my mind and an Arya Bodhisattva's mind and a Buddha's mind. From that perspective of the conventional object, then the emptiness of that mind is going to be different. Okay? So from the perspective of the cup and the telephone, because those two conventional objects are different, then we can say that the emptiness of the cup and the emptiness of the telephone are not exactly the same, even though from the perspective of the mind that's directly realizing emptiness, they are the same. Okay? So when you have a mind with one level of true cessation, the true cessation of, let's say, the first ground, then the emptiness of that mind is the emptiness of the mind with that true cessation, with the true cessation of the first ground. The second ground has eliminated more defilements. So that true cessation is different in the sense that it's the lack of more defilements, even though that true cessation is actually the emptiness of that mind. Okay?
I get it, but I don't know if I could explain it. I don't think I get it well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that I know when I first heard, I was going, huh? Yeah, but you know, when you think about it, it's a thing of thinking about something from different perspectives. Okay? How it's going to appear to the direct cognizer perceiving it versus, you know, how it's being described in words and conventional language. Okay? Huh?
There's a little bit the channel A and channel B.
Yeah, a little bit like that. But it's tricky because it's all emptiness. Yeah.
Is that mostly because on the conventional level, the object that the mind is perceiving the emptiness of changes?
Well, the object,
So the afflictions.
yeah, the mind is perceiving the emptiness of all phenomena. That doesn't change. But that mind that's perceiving that emptiness has greater and lesser degrees of afflictions when it is not in meditative equipoise on emptiness.
So the emptiness of that mind on the conventional level is different.
Yes.
but purifies more and more and is more clear about it.
Right. So as that mind is purified, then because that emptiness is the emptiness of that mind, then we say the emptiness gets purified. Even though the emptiness never had any stains to start with, in the sense that the emptiness was never truly existent. Okay, so in Yu Lama, you know, the Uttara Tantra, Sublime Continuum, they discuss this at great length because they talk, you know, from the Galu viewpoint, the Buddha nature that's spoken about in Yu Lama is the emptiness of inherent existence of the mind. So, you know, when you read that text, it talks about, well, you know, there's something that's pure, but it still needs to be purified. So how can that be? You know, this is one of the puzzles that they bring up in the text. And the way, you know, Gyaltsabje explains it is that emptiness of the mind, you know, from one perspective, it has no defilements because it is empty of inherent existence. Okay? From another perspective, because it's the emptiness of a mind with defilements, that emptiness needs to be purified. In the sense that the mind that it's the emptiness of needs to be purified.
Conventional phenomena needs to be
Yeah, that mind needs to be purified. Yeah, so as it's purified, then its emptiness is also purified.
Yeah, because you couldn't separate them.
Yeah,
It was leaning on.
they're one nature. Yeah, so even though they're different, you know, when we talk in words and everything, they're one nature. So by purifying one, you purify the other. Yeah. Even though emptiness, from the perspective of the direct realization, there's no difference.
So then the purification gets purified in the conventional level, not in the equipoise?
No, the afflictions are eliminated during the meditative equipoise. During the meditative equipoise, yeah. Yeah, when the mind is realizing emptiness, it's that realization of emptiness that purifies the afflictions and all the other obscurations on the mind. Okay? So it's got to be a wisdom that realizes the ultimate nature. That, because only that's going to have the power to eliminate ignorance, because only that wisdom sees that what ignorance sees doesn't exist.
So what is it that causes to continue advancing, purifying?
Because the mind, yeah, when you're in that meditative equipoise on emptiness, that mind is completely pure in the sense that there's no afflictions manifest in it, okay? But that mind, in the sense of being part of a continuum, when that bodhisattva comes out of their meditation, they still, you know, have the seeds of the afflictions on their mind, or they still may have the predispositions, the latencies of the afflictions on their mind. Okay? So in that sense, that mind, you know, because you're not just in meditative equipoise, you come out, yeah? And then, you know, who knows what goes on in your mind.
In
Yeah.
that sense, is it proper to say then that the wisdom that realizes emptiness, that's a conventional phenomenon?
Yeah.
So that actually is where the deepening is happening. I mean, I guess I always thought that wisdom that realizes emptiness was this one thing.
Yeah.
And now I'm seeing it's like this is another way of different words to talk about the same thing.
Yeah, that in one way, the wisdom realizing emptiness is in all these different stages of the Bodhisattva, is one thing in the Arya Bodhisattva, in that it realizes emptiness directly. But that wisdom realizing emptiness differs in each ground because some grounds are capable of eliminating one level of defilement, but not another level. When that wisdom gets stronger, then it's capable of eliminating the next level. When it gets stronger, then it's capable of eliminating the next level. So from that viewpoint, that wisdom is different, isn't it? Yeah, but from the viewpoint of it understanding emptiness directly, it's the same.
So then when they talk about the different kinds of duality, I think was the thing, and they have the different types, those are the deepenings?
No, no, yeah. No, it's just the deepening means the strength of that wisdom, the power it has to eliminate greater and greater levels of defilement. Yeah. The emptiness you realize is the same. Yeah. And that emptiness is realized directly in all of them, in all of the grounds. But the power of that wisdom to eliminate defilements is different. Okay?
So it's not on the side of the object.
Yeah, it's the side of that wisdom. Okay? Yeah, you got to think about it. You got to think about it. In Guy's book, The Two Truths, he talks a little bit about it. Yeah. But I know when I first came across it, I was going, oh, what in the world? Yeah. But, you know, this is why we have to think about the teachings. Mm-hmm.
So is this whole thing, is this because emptiness is empty? Is this where this is getting? Does that make sense?
What's this? When you talk about, is this where this is getting? What's
Well, this
this?
whole discussion,
Yeah.
that in meditative equipoise you're seeing, you know, you have this direct perception of emptiness, and now you're describing the emptiness based on the mind that's realizing the emptiness.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, what comes to mind is just the emptiness of emptiness.
Yeah, I mean, it's
But
true,
this-
emptiness is empty also. And the wisdom realizing emptiness is also empty. Yeah.
Okay, well, but that doesn't, does that have any explanatory power on this?
I don't know, think about it some more and see if it does.
Okay. It feels like it does. I don't know that it does.
Yeah. I mean, I think it certainly could, because, you know, whenever we talk about emptiness, whenever we talk about anything, we put it in a box. Yeah. And we think that our conceptual way of looking at it is what that thing is. And we do that to emptiness as well as to everything else. And so that can make understanding this very, you know, different. Or difficult. Mm-hmm.
So this ties into his question. It seems to me that our language and our conventionalities has to have the subject and object, but they're actually, if things are really non-dual, then the mind is both subject and object.
Okay, when the mind is the subject, emptiness is the object. Okay, and that's describing it on conventional terms. In the experience of emptiness, there's no appearance of subject and object. There's no experience of subject and object. The mind is completely fused with the object. But from our conventional language, when we talk about that experience, we still talk about a mind and we talk about its object. Okay? There's nothing wrong with doing that on a conventional level. The difficulty is, as soon as we talk about subject and object, we think both of them are truly existent. Yeah, that's where the problem comes in. Yeah, it's hard to imagine. How can you perceive something non-dualistically without the appearance of subject and object, especially when what you're perceiving is the very nature of your mind? Yeah. Yeah.
And we have to think about the emptiness of the Buddha's mind in relationship to the Buddha's conventional mind, otherwise we'll make Buddha into God.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
Yeah,
too.
and that's why when we talk about the Buddha bodies,
Right.
under the Dharmakaya, there's two kinds of, well, one way of dividing it, there's two kinds of Dharmakaya. The omniscient mind and the nature body.
Yeah.
Okay?
And they have to be together for us not to grab at it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Omniscient mind and the Buddha body?
Hmm?
You said the Dharmakaya is divided in the omniscient mind and the...
And the nature body. Yeah. Okay, but body doesn't mean physical body. It means like a corpus of things or a collection of, don't think of it as physical body. Otherwise you get really confused. You think truth body. What's truth body? Kind of, what color is that? Well, it isn't. Okay? So, we wish everybody online a good retreat from afar. If you're not doing it, sign up. And if you don't want to sign up, then just pretend I don't exist. And then new teachings will be posted each week. And if you do the retreat from afar, then you can go online, because we'll be explaining the Vajrasattva practice. And so all those talks BBC talks will go online and you can watch it. And that will help your practice of the Vajrasattva retreat from afar. And if you're doing the 6th session retreat from afar, then contact the office and they can help you access the videos of those teachings. Okay? Good. And then we'll start up again in March.
May the
Spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and all spiritual friends who practice it, have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Lobsang's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Guru Ratna Mandala Kaniryatayami. Due to this merit may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. In the snowy mountain pure land, you're the source of good and happiness. Powerful Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezig, may you stay until samsara ends. May the deeds of explaining and practicing the Dharma done by groups supporting the teachings and their upholders, who spread the view of dependent arising and non-violent actions in the 10 directions, and especially at Sravasti Abbey in the West Florida.